In this video, we're going to take a look at a brown ink by Platinum Brown. As always, there's timestamps down below so you can skip around, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. Also, down in the description is a link to the brown ink playlist, so if you want to see more of them, you can find that there. I'm an ink guy, and let's get into the first writing sample done on 90 GSM Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. Now we have no feather, spread, halo sheen, but some very nice shading. It shades well in the stub. It shades well in the extra fine that is a lot lighter than the stub. Now the medium that is darker than the extra fine, not nearly as dark as the stub, also shades incredibly well. I'm so pleasantly surprised with this. I don't think I was expecting this good from it. The extra fine took 12 seconds to dry, while the medium took 17. The scrubby for both does show some color variation. It's way better in the writing. And the smear test, I think you stand a chance of recovery if you smeared while you were writing. To have a range of experience with this ink, all of the writing samples are done with a Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a medium, and a Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Then a Diplomat Arrow with a broad nib was inked up, used for a day, and used to take the notes for this video. The next writing sample is done on 52 GSM Tomoe River. We have no bleeding, very minor ghosting on the medium, nothing on the extra fine. We have no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shading in the stub, no shading in the medium, but shading in the extra fine, and it's very nicely and gentle in and out. Like quick is darker to darker, where brown goes darker into lighter. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub, and the medium is only a tad bit darker than the extra fine. The extra fine took 15 seconds to dry, while the medium took 23. The scrubby for both, the extra fine shows a little color variation, the medium shows none, and we definitely got it better in the extra fine in the writing. The smear test, I think you stand a fairly good chance of recovery if you smear while you're writing. I agree with Vita. There's a lot to learn by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down, and then it's put into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And what we're seeing is a classic way to mix a brown color. By mixing red and green, you very much get brown, which is what they have done here. We see that it is a light red at the bottom and a bright green at the top. And I think it's the difference between those which is giving us such good shading. Now the one on the right that's let dry for 10 minutes before it's put into water, we see a little bit more distinctly the two colors, and where they are really meeting, we see that brown, but otherwise, I'm not really expecting any resistance from this ink. The next writing sample is done on 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. No bleeding, no ghosting. We have no feather, spread, halo sheen. We do get shading with the extra fine, where you see quick goes darker to darker, and brown goes darker, lighter. There's a tiny bit of shading in the medium. You look at Fox where it goes lighter to darker. Over goes lighter to darker, but no shading in the stub. The extra fine's a lot lighter than the stub, where the medium's darker than the extra fine, nowhere near as dark as the stub. The extra fine took 12 seconds to dry, while medium took 18. The scrubby for both don't show a ton of color variation. The medium or the extra fine shows a lot more than the medium, and the extra fine showed a lot more in the writing than the medium did. And the smear test, you could probably recover if you smeared while you were writing. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on the page and how hard it may be to clean from your pen. The smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, you could feel safe using this in a note-taking situation. There's no loss of information and no real blowout. Now, water is reactivating. You see some of the areas where the white of the paper is coming through, and that's why it only took water to get it out of my pen. Pen Flush is doing basically what water did, and the 1/3 bleach solution is removing it and discoloring the surrounding areas to a neat pink color. But again, it only took that water to get it out of the pen, so keep that in mind. The next writing sample is done on white lines paper. Now, we do get some bleed spots into the paper very deep. It's not coming through, it's not touching the back, and I don't think it would even stop you from using the back of the page. We have no feather, spread, halo sheen, a little bit of shading, just a little bit. If you look at the extra fine, where the is much darker than the word quick. Lazy goes darker to lighter. The extra fine's a lot lighter than the stub, where the medium's almost the same tone as the stub. Extra fine took 4 seconds to dry, while the medium took 6. Scrubby for both are giving us no color variation, although there's a little bit of it in the extra fine, and the smear test you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average viscosity was 2.5, and the realm of normal was 2.1 to 2.9. Platinum Brown has a viscosity of 1.53, making it wet. If you're interested in how the viscosity test and all that's done, then down in the description is a link to that video. Now, let's take a look at Strathmore writing paper. No bleeding, no ghosting. We have no feather, spread, halo sheen. We do have shading, tiny bit, just a couple spots. The starts light and gets dark and is much darker than the word jumps. So it is kind of there in the extra fine. The extra fine's a lot lighter than the stub. The medium's the same tone as the stub. Extra fine took 6 seconds to dry, while medium took 9. Now the scrubby of the extra fine shows a lot more color variation than we get in the writing. The medium shows a tiny bit, but we have none there. And the smear test I do not think you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average dry time was 17 seconds, and the realm of normal was 13 to 21 seconds. Platinum Brown has an average dry time of 16 seconds, meaning, you know it, it's normal. The last writing sample is done on P. Berger paper. Now we have a ton of bleed spots coming very heavy into the page. None of this came through and touched the next page, not even here with the stub. But I do not think you could use the back of the page, because just look at how much came very deep. I think you'd lose both sides of your notes. We do have feathering in the stub. We do have feathering in the medium. We do not have feathering in the extra fine. We have no halo, no sheen. We do get shading in the extra fine. It shades actually very nicely. You look at over, starts dark, gets light, and gets dark again. The is very dark, where brown starts dark to light to dark. Fox, light to dark. We even have shading in the medium, where fox goes lighter to darker. The goes lighter to darker. It's not too bad. The extra fine took 2 seconds to dry. It's a lot lighter than the stub. The medium took 4 seconds to dry. It's only a little bit lighter than the stub. Scrubby for both are giving us no color variation, although it is showing up in the writing. And the smear test, you stand a very strong chance of recovery if you smear while you're writing. Instead of finding inks that look like Platinum Brown, I'd prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I wanted to go with really earthy tones. I chose green from Kaweco, their palm green. Now, if you'd prefer a different complement color, then down in the description is a link to those playlists. What do I think of Platinum's Brown? The only problem with this ink is you have to get it in cartridges. At least I haven't found the bottle. I could be wildly wrong. This is completely overlooked, but looks so good on the page. If you have like 10,000 cartridges you don't want, let me know, because I love this ink. So what nib and pen give the best writing experience with this ink? I really do think it generally looks good. I really like its tone in a very wet medium or broad. I really do prefer it the most from a wet medium or medium flow medium pen. But I do have to admit, I do not care for it from a dry fine. The funny thing is, one of the pens I've used it in that is not in this review anywhere is a medium 3776, and it worked amazing there. I hope you got something out of this video, and in the next video, we're going to take a look at Ackerman's number 26.